Welcome everyone to our new format, Keeping Up with the Ambassadors. Me as an intern of the Charney Resolution Center would like to start this new format where I will be interviewing some of the MS alumni who participate in the Ambassador Program, which is a network of MS students who after their years at the boarding school try to keep spreading the center's mission across the world. Please welcome our first guest, Benji from Poland. Hello, Benji.
Hello.
So, Benji, could you give us a little introduction about yourself and maybe tell us what have you been doing after you graduated from MS in 2018?
Yes, sure. So as you mentioned, I graduated from MS in 2018. And during my last year, I secured a place at the New York University, Abu Dhabi, where I was going to study my undergraduate degree. However, I decided to take a gap year where I spent one semester in the US in a social entrepreneurship program called Watson Institute. And after that semester, I came back to Poland. I worked on different volunteering projects. I traveled a little bit of everything, like most of the people who decide to take a gap year. And following that year, I started my studies in Abu Dhabi. I decided to pursue a degree in civil engineering. That has changed not much. Right now, I'm studying mechanical engineering. And during this time, I guess I was during my gap year, I was very much involved with education and raising awareness about the possible benefits that stem from gap year, because in Poland, this idea is not really well known. And but over the last 2 years, I've been more involved with environmental sustainability and climate action. So I was involved with the climate movement, both in Poland and then in the meantime, during my gap year, also in other countries, and most recently in the UAE. So it's been really valuable experience. And in particular, I've been learning more about renewable energy. So this is sort of my main area of knowledge right now. And this is also where I'm working, because I'm a research assistant at the German Institute for Economic Research, where we model the future energy scenarios with high share of renewables. And also one of my big commitments is volunteering as a coordinator of a global network of youth energy organizations and individuals, where we help the UN and other entities to involve young people in their projects that relate to renewable energy.
Wow, definitely a lot of interesting projects and ideas. A perfect role model for the MS students who are listening to us. And I'd like, before we dive into the specifics of your work in this field, I'd like to ask just a more personal question about where does this passion or this desire to work in this field come from?
That's a great question. I think actually, so when I used to live in Poland, caring about the environment was not something I thought about very intentionally most of the time. It was something that my parents taught me, to not waste energy, not to waste food, not waste water. But it was both from the economic angle, because obviously we save money, and this environmental angle was somewhere there, but it wasn't so prominent. And it actually was only when I first came to MS, and for the first time ever, I got to live with people with very different lifestyles, that I saw, unfortunately, how wasteful some people are. It was blowing my mind that people would leave the room and not turn off their lights, or have the AC on and have the windows wide open. It was totally insane. And just seeing, I guess, the scale of waste, how wasteful people were, really made me rethink the priorities and how we live and what we need to do. And sort of it all started from there. I think right now I'm much more oriented on a systems level solutions and, sort of bigger picture. But definitely it all started with very personal interactions and realizations.
Okay, Interesting. And did your 2 years spent in the Middle East also affect then your future experiences? Like you told me before, you then were involved in internships and now you study in the UAE. So did you keep this interest with the Middle East and the theme of sustainability?
Yeah, so I think this is very there's a lot of things related to sustainability when it comes to Israel, Palestine, and other countries in the regions, including the United Arab Emirates, because obviously they are facing very harsh conditions with a lot of with a lot. So it's very hot, obviously, very little water, but also a lot of sunshine. So with the potential that is coming right now from solar PV power generation, unfortunately, we don't see countries stepping up with their ambitions to the extent of possibilities that are available to them, given that these are places where you can have the cheapest in the world solar power generation.
Why do you think it's the case that countries are not stepping up yet? Like, are they too caught up still in the petrol and oil market, or why are they not catching this opportunity?
Well, I think that many of the countries, because these are countries that have the cheapest solar PV, but they have also, many of them have the cheapest fossil fuels, right? They are the producers. It's very easily accessible. So this offset between what is cheaper and also what is strategically more important sometimes tips the balance. But I do think that overall, in big picture, I think especially the recent Abraham Accords have a lot of potential for further improving the collaboration between different countries on those issues, right? We have Israel that is very advanced in terms of water desalination, which is necessary probably for this region. We have also very advanced hydroponics and aquaponics, so agricultural systems that require very little water and soil for growing. So both of those technologies are going to be of great interest to countries in the Gulf. And on the other hand, in the UAE, we have very advanced rain seeding program where they disperse particles of silver or just salt, normal salt, and that causes rain, which is working pretty well in the UAE actually over the last few years. At least this is what they are claiming. And that's something that Israel may want to bring from the Gulf. So I think there's a lot of interesting things that can happen in this area in the next few years to sort of improve the living conditions of all people in the region.
Okay, good answer. Yes, definitely. I also want to point out how important it is to have a transnational and collaborative approach, because this is an issue that doesn't affect just single areas of this planet. We will all be affected by it. We are all already affected by it. And how do you feel about the responsibility that some of the richer Western countries withhold by having larger emissions, but by being less affected from the consequences, because the scarcity of water is often in the sub-Saharan Africa and never in the middle of Europe, let's say?
Yeah. I mean, that's clearly one of the key issues related to climate justice and environmental justice, right? What we are seeing is that 10%, the richest 10% are emitting 90% of the global emissions, with the richest something like 2% emitting 50% of the global emissions. So we know that the super rich are responsible for the vast majority of the emissions. And whether we realize it or not, unfortunately, you and me, we are probably in the top 2%, because we are just really not aware of all the scale of deprivation and inequality that is happening across the world. And this is totally appalling. And in 2015, when Paris Agreement was signed, countries pledged to commit $100 billion per year to the Green Climate Fund to support clean energy, to support transition to net zero for all developing countries. And you know what, it was supposed to be per year. Over the last 6 years, we haven't gotten even to this $100 billion. So we are it is completely unequal, completely unfair. And it is, as you said, it impacts the most vulnerable ones. So I am a bit, it is positive to see more and more ambitions from countries from the European Union. Germany recently upgraded its carbon neutrality goal, I believe, to 2045. But you know, we need action right now, and we need support right now, especially for the adaptation, because floods, droughts, hurricanes, they are already affecting people right now. So we need to create infrastructure that is resilient, and everything is connected, right? It's not like climate change will come in 20 years and it will start just killing people, right? No, it's floods that are going to first destroy people's agriculture, people's land, so they will not have food, so they will starve, so they will have to import more food. Like, yeah, I mean, we can go on and on about it.
No, I think this is also one of the main problem of the climate change issue, because many people don't see it as an imminent problem like a war, because you don't see people directly dying out of heat. But the problem is that the scarcity of water and the droughts affects then migration and scarcity of food. Like, it's all a chain. And so not that many people die directly because of the rising temperatures. And this is why the global audience and a normal, not very educated person does not see it as such a prominent issue. On the other hand, all the science and all the studies show that we have to act now. So that leads to another question I had on my mind of, as you said, it is very important to approach it systematically and to do this transition to renewable energy. But what do you think we as individuals can do to participate in this fight? Or do you think it even helps to go to protest or maybe cut on meat? Or do you think it's just a drop on the ocean and the change should be from the top to the bottom?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think this is something that so many of us who have been joining the climate movement have been trying to understand. And I think once you dive a little bit deeper, or think about it more, look at the data, it is crystal clear that we need system levels change. We need our energy system to change. We need our agricultural system to change. We need change in how we use transport, and industry needs to change. And this question of what you as a person can do, what is the single most effective thing, it's probably to vote for the party that is going to support this transition. That's probably right now, that's the single most effective thing. Then second thing, it's to pursue a career, educate yourself and pursue a career that makes sure that you are part of the solution. And it doesn't mean you have to go into sustainability, because there's only so many sustainability careers. What we really need is that people in every sector of the society, people working in I don't know, as consultants, people working as doctors, people working as school principals, they all need to think that, they need to live that, and this is how we can change. And in addition to voting, of course, in this first sort of tier of action is political activism, right? It's not only you voting, it's also, of course, you going to demonstration, going to marches, putting pressure on your elected officials, going to your city council and asking why they are doing what they are doing. So I think political activism is by far the most important and most effective action. Then second, of course, come all your own education and your own long-term actions. And then I would say all the rest, right? So going vegetarian, reducing flights. It's, of course, that's a whole new different category. I think going vegetarian, reducing flights, and not using car are the three most effective actions, as has been shown by some studies. So this is very important, and we shouldn't deny that. But let's not make those actions performative activism, because if we'll never reach the critical mass if we limit those actions to ourselves. And we are really fed this idea by the capitalist system that we are part of. If you think about the idea of carbon footprint, maybe some may not be aware, it was made up by BP. Like BP, the British Petroleum, one of the biggest polluters in history, came up with this idea of, oh, let's let people measure their carbon footprint and offset it or whatever. This is absolute absurd to think that personal footprint is anywhere comparable to it. And having that said, we still need to, just last sentence. So of course we need to do all three of those, but let's try to focus on the political the most.
Okay, wow, very insightful comments, and especially one about BP. I didn't know that fact. Good to know. Okay, now I was thinking, looking at the bigger picture again, are you hopeful? Do you think it's too late? Like, do you think in the recent years with our generation standing up more and all the movements and Friday for Future, Extinction Rebellion, but also more recently the newly elected president of the United States, who in Biden's new infrastructure plan, he said he would invest a lot in the electric car market and in renewable energies. Like, are you hopeful? Do you see the change coming, and do you see it coming at the right time?
Yeah, I think that the change is coming. We see it coming. We see that there is, as I mentioned, we just heard the pledge from Germany to be carbon neutral by 2045. The US announced, is it 50% greenhouse gas emissions reduction by 2030? So these are things, right? Like every month, basically, we hear a different country coming forth with their proposal. But what we need to see more of is the short-term commitments, right? Of course, if you say our country will be carbon neutral by 2050 and you don't do anything right now, you just push your responsibility. And unfortunately, the emissions, by definition, emissions, they expire after some time. So the more we put right now, they will leave the atmosphere earlier than if we keep putting them until later. So we need to start acting as fast as possible right now, and we are not seeing it yet because we have very clear trajectories. There's a bunch of different organizations that show us very clear trajectories of how we need to reduce our emissions, and those slopes are not as steep as they should be. So I hope that continued pressure will bring us there within the next few years.
Okay, I hope the same. And I'd like to ask you if you just have any closing remarks for this interview, anything you want the audience to hear, sort of to sum up everything you've talked about.
I think that I hope that the sustainability spirit at EMIS is still going strong, and of course also beyond. I know many of our alumni are involved in sustainability studies or in their work. So yeah, I think it's so important, and I really hope many people will continue to pursue work in this career. And if anyone who's watching this would like to be connected and discuss or just talk about anything, I'm here.
Happily, and I'll leave in the bio your email so they can contact you, and I'll share with you just a little news because you mentioned EMIS, and I'm sure you'll be happy to hear that this year they actually started a garden and they will be starting to plant also vegetables and trees, etc. So let's hope in a few years EMIS can almost be self-sustained. Okay.
Hopefully.
And they're implanting solar panels. So step by step.
That's amazing.
Okay. Thank you, Benji. Thank you for everyone that's watching. And I'll see you in the second episode of Catching Up with Ambassadors. Bye.
Right. Thank you.